Coming up,
It's like bullets were raining on the house. That's what it felt like. I remember when the first bomb was dropped in Denham Town. Tamara, a bomb.
hi everyone. This week on the Trailblazers, we have the phenomenal story of a woman who grew up in the volatile community of Denham Town but did not let that define her and is now a master educator, an author, and she also has a PhD on the way. Her name is Louise Lawrence-Rose. You want to stay tuned for that riveting story.
I had a cousin and she was involved, let me say, with a gunman. And so that, she was a high school student, but involved with a gunman.
Thanks to our partners, the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel, Kingston's preferred choice. Stars Publicity for all your public relations and publicity needs. Get noticed and align with the stars. DG's Health and Wellness Center, operated by certified nutritionist and health columnist Donovan Grant. Contact them today for all your weight loss and other nutritional needs. And Care is Beauty for all your skincare goals and more. Get 5% off each purchase from them using the discount code TAMARA5OFF. Learn more details on all these partners as well as links to their website by visiting the description box on the Trailblazers with Tamara McHale YouTube channel.
What's your word to them?
I would say to fight. Fight for your dreams, fight for your purpose.
Life that inspires you, that motive that you aspire to be.
Meaningful and critical. It's not a waste time movement, damn it.
In my humble opinion, is become very comfortable with yourself.
Very important. You know, the saying in Jamaica, one hand can't clap.
You forgive yourself for allowing people to mistreat you.
Disciplines that we need to embody.
You just have to work at it and be committed. Everyone.
And scary to have all of that fall away from you. And you have to celebrate those wins. Work with fitness clients.
For guidance, rely on Christ for support.
And no rush. I did it. I made my move into entrepreneurship at 40.
So scared that when...
What, last comments would you want to share with
you? Have your core values, you do the right things, it'll fall in place for you.
It is a pleasure to finally have you on the Trailblazers. I'm so delighted to have you here.
I'm so delighted to be here. It's been a long time coming.
It has been, but this morning I actually said on the radio program, the proverb for the day was nothing before its time, or nothing happened before its time. So the timing is indeed right now. But welcome. I'm so delighted. It's always good when we can feature phenomenal persons in our communities that are doing amazing things and positively impacting lives. And you are indeed the embodiment of such an individual.
Thank you.
Okay. And I'm understanding that you're actually you're Jamaican, but you're actually joining me right now from California?
Yes, from Riverside in California. I am currently a PhD student at Last Year University. Mm-hmm. And so I have been here 2 years now in the PhD in instructional leadership.
Awesome. All right. And I'm happy we started on that note because Louise's journey to get to California to be doing her PhD is the stuff that we watch in the movies and we read about in the books, and we're going to be exploring today on the Trailblazers. So Louise, let's jump right into that, because I understand that you actually grew up in the, the war-torn community, or I don't know if I want to use that term, but or as we Jamaicans love to say, the ghetto community of Denham Town, which, as we know, even now, it's been having flare up with, gang violence and criminal activities. So talk to us about your experience growing up in Denham Town.
Well, my dear, it was nothing less than a movie, as you'd like to say. Looking back at it now, but going through it, it was very, very scary. Coming from the country, very wide-eyed and bushy tail, as some people would say, not understanding how that community ran. I found myself in a bit of spot from time to time. I remember even being, held on to by a soldier, questioned, you know, stuff like that. Where the gunman them there, where your gunman friend there, you know, as a young school girl. And I was, I mean, heart pounding kind of situation. You don't understand why you just be selected like that and be treated that way, because you just believe coming from the country, everybody warm, say hello and stuff like that, you know. But it was really a very eye-opening experience, and something that I had to overcome in order to complete my high school and move on in my educational journey.
Wow.
So, you know, coming from the country.
Yes, because stick up in, because you mentioned coming from the country. So you actually, which country do you mean, by the way? I know you mean obviously like rural areas, but what particular rural area? And was it a case that your family moved?
Right. So I was coming from rural St. Catherine, a community called Browns Hall, very close to Old Harbour, maybe just half an hour from Old Harbour.
And at what age did your family move? What age were you when they moved to Denham Town?
I was just becoming 12. I was 11 plus.
So pretty young.
Very young. So, you know, I went there and I had a cousin and she was involved, let me say, with a gunman. And so that, yeah, she was a high school student, but involved with a gunman. So she was 16, I believe, going on 17, almost finishing school. And she found herself in this relationship. So that kind of brought to our home this kind of tension and even gun activities. You understand? Because I remember, Tamara, one day I was there studying for my exams, and my brother was there as well. And the gunman and his friends, they just came on scene. You don't even know when they're coming because they move so slick, right? And they come on the scene now and they just stop. And, you know, everybody was just stop what we're doing and looking up. And then my brother was there as well. And this was initiation for my brother. My brother is older than me, 2 years older than me. And at the time I was about 16 when this happened. And the gunman took the gun and just put it in my brother's hand like that. And my brother looked at it and he turned it over and he looked at it and he gave it back to him, right? But after they left, my brother started to behave differently. He started to like walk sideways and he started to skank and kind of, you know, behave like this because he kind of felt now like he was a part of the in-group. You understand? So this is the power of that kind of dynamic. You understand, of guns and initiation and pulling our young people over into that side. So I've seen it firsthand. I've been a part of that story, sadly, but by the grace of God.
By the grace
by the grace of God, we were able to escape the ills, because you know it's just a road that leads to demise.
Yes.
Eventually. So what happened?
So your brother actually became a part of any gang activity?
No, but my mother found out what was happening. She realized that, you know, this is getting too close for comfort. And so she did her best to take us out of that community. So we moved to Portmore.
But before we move to Portmore, because I understand you've even had experiences when you were at Denham Town, in Denham Town living and gunshot blaring. And I mean, as a young student at that, what was that like for you?
Oh my goodness, Tamara, most time, as you would say, your heart in your mouth is the kind of experience it was.
And like what happened?
Because I remember the first soldier that died in Denham Town, based on their history, I believe, was 2 backyards away from where I live. And that night it felt like bullets were raining on the house. That's what it felt like. I remember when the first bomb was dropped in Denham Town. Tamara, a bomb. I actually believe that it was the second coming.
Oh,
honestly, I was just listening for the trumpet sound because that was the loudest sound I've ever heard, you know? And when we woke up in the morning, we saw the destruction, grills of the house and side of the house torn off and everything like that. So it was becoming very war-torn. And so my mother decided that, you know what, she didn't have the money, but she had to get us out of this situation. And so we moved to
and it was just your mom as your guardian?
Yes, she was a single parent at the time.
Oh, wow. And you and your brother?
Me, my brother. Well, my brother used to come and go because he still lived in the country, but he had finished his high school. So, you know, usually it's like the natural course of things is like after you finish your education, you come to town to get a work. And then because depending on the socio-economic status of the family, cannot afford certain places, they end up in the ghetto. And so that story now is what is either going to break you or build you. But by the grace of God, it helped to build me and move me on to other things in life.
Awesome. So, yeah. All right. So, I mean, that is just amazing to have that experience. You know, your friend, I mean, not even your friend, your cousin involved with the gunman, shots blaring, and then, you know. So, I mean, so tell us now, how was it now that you were able now to recoup in a sense and get yourself together? Was it when now the family moved to Portmore?
Well, I would like to give a shout out to all those teachers who I've had in high school. I remember talking to my guidance counselors. I remember talking to my classroom teachers about some issues, even if I'm scared, I don't want to go home, stuff like that. And my mother too, she would allow us, like if we heard on the news that there was flare up in the community, we could just revert to the rural community where we were from. So just by communicating to her where we were gonna go. So sometimes she would just say to us, you know what? Stay over there and go to school. So we'll take the country bus from rural St. Catherine and come to, that time I was going to Osemarty in Spanish Town, Twickenham Park. So it wasn't so difficult. But then to get on the country bus, you have to wake up very early, like 4 o'clock, and make sure you catch it with the market people and stuff like that. So that was what the high school experience was like. It wasn't very smooth, but it allowed me to realize that if I really wanted something in life, I had to work extra hard for it, because I didn't have anybody dropping me off at school, and sometimes the funds were low, sometimes there were no funds, but I decided that I'm going to go to school anyway. I'm going to complete my assignments. I'm going to do what it takes to succeed. And by the grace of God, I did.
That's amazing. And I like the fact that you know, keep mentioning by the grace of God, but at the same time, you must have had that inner strength or something within you that kept pushing you forward, because after being traumatized in Denham Town and then now making your journey, I'm interested to find out if it was even because of the experience that you had with the teachers that kind of propelled you into now being a master educator yourself and also giving back.
I would say yes. From I was in primary school, I've had some great teachers. I remember even my grade 6 teacher, she was just different, and she showed us how we could become even greater than our circumstances. Look beyond what you see. You know, what do you want to be? You can achieve that. So from I was even younger in primary school days, I used to take my cousins and I used to teach them. I used to use charcoal and on zinc and teach them, because I wanted to be a teacher myself. And then when I was in high school, as I said, I had a number of great teachers, and one of them was my home economics teacher, and she also would call me. Actually, she's a very close family friend. So when she realized that I'm now coming to, you know, Osemarty, she, you know, told me that there were some extra things that she would like to see me do, some extra lessons that she would like to teach me. So even after my peers had gone to play or, you know, after school, she would call me back. So I would be helping her in the department, you know, baking and decorating and doing extra things, because she saw something in me that she wanted, you know, to pull out and push forward. And so in the course of time, this primary school teacher, Miss Christian, I was able to go to a workshop and call her by name, because even in primary school, we never used to address our teacher by name, you know. So to just know them by their surname, and I could call her, you know, if a sign, and I found out her first name, and it gave me that awe to be able to just call her by her first name. Yes. And my high school teacher, in the course of time, I would become an education officer, and she would be a senior education officer, regional director. And so, you know, I just kind of follow that course based on the great teachers that I would have that inspired me.
That's awesome. So definitely, so once you were in high school, you began the process to, as you mentioned, becoming a master educator. And you're also, I'm going to touch on that in a bit in terms of you being an author as well. But I'm sure the fact that you had mentioned earlier that your mom was a single parent, it must have not been easy for her. So tell us about the challenges along that path, Betty, especially in terms of finances to get there.
It was very, very difficult. I remember that my mother, she used to, you know, try different jobs in the factories and stuff like that. And she used to go downtown. She used to buy little fruits and stuff, and she would keep a stall. So sometimes at the gate, we would have people coming and buying from us and stuff like that. She would, and then in the course of time too, my mother, who is now a principal, so her story is also one of overcoming.
Wow,
yes.
Oh, that's awesome.
When we moved out of Denham Town, she got a job as a pre-trained teacher. And she started working there, and we had a very awesome educator. She's deceased now, Daphne Chin, and she taught us the skills in pedagogy. So I'm telling you, it's just a teacher story. You know, we just have these people hand-holding us and taking us to the next level.
For somebody who is looking on, right, and you grew up in a single family home, single parent home, growing up in the ghetto, albeit you later moved, but you lived there in a while, you would have experienced certain trauma. How was it that you were able, like, what was it? Where were you getting that inspiration from within you that, you know, you're not going to be a product of your environment or your circumstance? What caused that? Because often so many people get caught.
Well, definitely it is intrinsic, first of all. So I believe that based on my own values and my own determination, my own drive, I have a dream inside of me that I realize that, okay, what's happening around me now, this is not it. Is there something greater? And so that, I believe God put that in me, that keeps propelling me forward. And then, as I mentioned before, there are other mentors. The church is, for me, it's a whole university. The church, there was a church in Denham Town on Regent Street called the Regent Street Seventh-day Adventist Church that we were members of. And I'm telling you, that is a whole university in terms of learning, in terms of life skills development, in terms of mentorship of young people. I remember, like, you know, on weekends, they would take us out, show us that, you know, it's not just about the ghetto. So we had mentors who would tell us that, yes, you have what it takes, you are smart enough, you know, you are resilient enough, you can get your degree, you can go up to the doctoral level. And, you know, as young children, we used to feel like these people we used to talk about, they are so far removed from us. Can we really go up there? But, you know, it's good. And I believe that even for our own children, it's good to tell them, to push them, to challenge them, to say, you know, not to compare, but to say, you know, you can be a prime minister.
Yes.
You can be the minister of education. You know, challenge them. It is within them and they can do it. And another, what I did, even as a guidance counselor, I used to challenge my students the same way. And what I used to do, a part of the guidance and counseling program, was to get persons who they would be in awe about, like a Tamara McHale. I would invite you to come to my school and talk to my girls. So they see you on television, they see you on JIS. I remember the first every time I was on television, you're the one who did my interview. Yes, I was. Yes, I was at Jesse Paul Primary, and we had a health fair.
Oh yes, I do remember that. And
But the truth is, I've never seen the interview, but everybody told me that you're on TV. Yeah, and you did my interview. So I would bring people who they see on TV and idolize. There would be Tifa, there would be Tessa and Chin, and all of these people, and let them touch them. Let them see that they are real people, and let them tell them their own story. That, you know, you can make it, you can become anything you want to be. And that was inspiring for them.
I love that. I love that. And I mean, you actually have been paying it forward, not only through your book and your work as an educator, but also because I noticed too, you know, I know that you had started this thing as well, where you also feature successful persons. I remember at one point it was like the men, doing amazing things, and I mean, so why do you feel like it's so important to also give back and to highlight the positive work of others?
You see, because it's paying it forward, and what you have been given, you don't just hoard it and keep it for yourself. You give it back. And so by sowing a seed, you create a ripple effect. And this ripple effect, you know, it can just touch so many people. You know, when you create ripples in the water, you start here, and when you look, it's just so many waves going forward. So that's what we do. We give back because we were poured into. And so I always find the opportunity to find the time to talk to a young person, you know, to give a motivational talk at a church program or at a community event, you know, or even to come on the Trailblazers, so that my story can go far and wide to help inspire others. Because, you know, we cannot change the whole world, but we can start with one young person. We can start with one individual. And just as how someone started with me and inspired me, I believe that I can do the same, and that person does the same, and so we change one individual at a time.
Indeed, indeed. All right, so quickly, out of everything that you experienced, what would you say was your greatest difficulty, and how did you overcome that?
Well, I would say my greatest difficulty would be to defy the odds of, you know, whatever circumstances were before me, whether it was financial, whether it was situational, in that case in Denham Town, or even family crisis, you know, because as I said, in my earlier years, I was, you know, not really very stable from family to family and just trying to find my footing somewhere. I believe that if you believe in yourself, if you believe in God, and I cannot but talk about God, you know, and if you just trust the process that you're going through, that it is going to be better one day.
And speak to me about the abandonment, because you mentioned, you know, that being a cycle as well. What do you mean?
Yes. Well, I felt abandoned. I felt like, you know, woe is me. I don't really belong anywhere, because, you know, some days you'll be, okay, come, you're going here, you're going to stay with X, or you're going to stay with Y. It doesn't work out. Okay, let's go down to Auntie so-and-so, or let's go over to Grandma, and so forth. So I didn't quite feel like in any of those circumstances that I belong.
Yeah, because you had to
because my family of origin was disintegrated.
Yeah,
so until I went to live with my mother when I was almost 12 years old, that's when I felt like, you know,
in your early years, you hadn't lived with your mom.
Well, I lived with her when when I was up until about 8, 6, or 7. And then when that separation happened with her and my dad, then I went to live with other family members.
So you were bouncing from home to home?
From home to home, I felt that way. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I had to find strength to go through all of that. And so I would say that that kind of instability was one of the hardest difficulties that I would have to overcome. And so for me, I try not to let my children have to go through anything like that.
True.
But also understanding that all the difficulties that I went through in life was a part of my process and a part of my journey to push me to where I am today.
Indeed, indeed. How did that abandonment, though, affect even your relationships, even romantically relationships? Because so very often when you have that kind of experience and that kind of feeling, it sort of even affects that kind of aspect. Not that I'm fasting in your business, but I'm just curious.
Well, I would say that it affected it negatively in the first instance. I remember when I was 17 years old and I decided I wanted to have my first boyfriend, which is a different story. Because my mother was my mother was very overprotective.
Okay.
Because we were children of a teenage mom, and so she wanted to make sure that we did not go through that cycle. She would not tell us really, this is what I went through, and so because of this, no, she's not gonna do that. She just war with us, like, you're talking to this person, it's not going to work, and stuff like that, and so on. So when I met my first boyfriend at age 17, yes, I didn't feel like, it was very odd for me in terms of that kind of relationship and trusting people and all of that. Actually, that is the whole story, Tamara. I told the gentleman that my name was Anastasia Lynch. And so, yes, so that was a trip. He trying to find out, who I really am and so forth. And because he was persistent, I decided to give him a chance because trust was a big issue for me,
And I can imagine as well, also, to quickly touch on it, the fact that you grew up without your dad,
yes,
father figure in your life. So how did even that impact you as a young woman?
Right. So it was trying to find someone who was not like my dad, because, and the truth is, life is so funny. The first person that I mentioned about, he was a lot like my dad because, life kind of bring you along a same, attract like. And so that happened for me, and I had to be resilient to come out of that relationship as well, because I realized exactly where it was going, and like I was, in a cycle, of abuse, and that I had to break that cycle. And so by God's grace, I got out of it. And
wow. And what kind of abuse, if you don't mind?
Well, the abuse was more psychological
and verbal,
and financial, and at some point it would get physical, and I'm not gonna downplay it. It's not like the beating, but like holding on to, twisting arm kind of thing, which is still it's still a part of physical violence and control.
Yes.
And so I had to get myself out of that situation. And also I would have gone into guidance and counseling. So I had all the skills, and I knew, the mindset of those individuals. And so I knew I had to get myself out of that situation, which by God's grace, again, I did. And so it's been a journey. It's really been a journey until I actually found the love of my life, which, when I met my husband, he asked me a question. He challenged me, like he said, you are used to a certain script. How about writing a new script? And that thing really, really challenged me.
That is so powerful, though.
A new life,
That's a powerful question.
It was very powerful. It was very powerful because, the reason he said that was I was telling him that, you know, I was interested in someone else. I was telling him that I was interested in someone else, and he was saying, no, tell me something about this person. And when I told him about the person, it sounded like something that I had said before. So he said to me, you seem to, you know, walk along the same path, and you are writing the same script. How about writing a new script? And I took him, you know, took up his challenge and his opportunity, and it was, I mean, a done deal. It was one of the best decisions I ever made in my life to get married to Robert Ricardo Rose.
Oh, that is awesome. And I mean, you know, I didn't even plan on going into your personal affairs like that.
I realize.
But I mean, I think it's so important, because the truth is a lot of women and men, because believe it or not, men go through situations like that as well, where we experience abandonment, whether from the lack of a mother or a father figure. We experience, and sometimes we don't even realize it until later when you're in the dating world, and the psychological impacts, and as you mentioned, repeating certain scripts, and then having that courage. So when you were leveling up your life, it wasn't only about becoming a teacher and coming out of Denham Town, but it was also breaking that cycle of the psychological aspects.
Psychological and emotional.
Yes.
Aspect of
so
things.
I really do appreciate you mentioning that, because at times we have to work on ourselves.
Definitely.
Right? And you had to make some conscious decisions to change and to flip that script in your life.
Yes. Definitely.
I really do appreciate you being very authentic on that. Okay, so we're winding down, and my final question to you is, Louise, because there's so much more I could touch on. By the way, Louise is also like a police chaplain. She's like a superwoman. She does so much. Yes, that's with the Jamaica Constabulary Force when she's out here, right? Right now, as we know, she's in California doing her PhD, and we know she's going to do excellent.
By the grace of God.
Indeed. But as we wrap things up, my final question to you is, what would be your words of advice or your tips for success for all of our aspiring trailblazers to level up and to be their best selves? And it doesn't, because sometimes we feel like to make a contribution to this world and to accomplish our purpose, we have to always be like a Oprah. Like Oprah is like somebody I admire. So I'm using her as a figure. But to really be a positive force of influence in your community and in your nation, and at the same time, not letting the circumstances of what you've been through define your life, what would you want to say to them?
I would say start right where you are. You know, there is so much in our communities that we can do and change. There are inspiring stories in our community of persons that, you know, need to be heard, and we can make a difference right where we are. I remember when I was a guidance counselor, I realized that one of the issues I had was the boys were performing less than their counterparts. They were kind of coming to school poorly and so on, and I realized that we needed an intervention there. And so I looked at my options, and I started some intervention with the boys, just the boys, you know, and it took some time, it took some effort, it took some energy. You're gonna have to, but those times I wasn't married, I was not, you know, with children yet, and so I had that time to give back. And so I used to volunteer a lot, and that not only helped those parents who needed some extra hand with their children, it also helped the young boys to understand themselves better and to perhaps grow up to be a mentor themselves. And most importantly, I believe it helped me to grow, you know, as I interacted with each of them and learn different skills. So I would say to a young person, just start right where you are in your community. Look at what you have to give. You may not be an Oprah, you may not be a Susan, you may not be a Tamara, but you are a Louise, and what can Louise give? You know, what story do you have to tell? You know, what can someone learn from your life, and who can you inspire? I remember there was a young man in my community. You know, people used to come to me as a young educator in my community to help with different things like filling out forms and, you know, different applications and stuff like that. And this young man, he came to me, and his family had left him here. So I worked with him, and he would come to me week after week and ask me what to do next and so forth. And I would help him until he got his,
visa.
What was it? Visa? Is a visa or
green card?
Green card, yes. To go away. You know what that young man did, Tamara? He said to me, I want you to come with me.
Really?
And yes. You know what he was doing? He was selling, he had a stall and he used to sell bottled drinks and little snacks and stuff like that. Tamara, the young man counted out whatever it was from a plane fare. Let's say it was 30,000 Jamaican dollars in $100 notes, crumpled notes, and gave me to buy my plane ticket to accompany him to his mother in Florida. You hear what I said?
Wow. The circle of life, paying it forward to come back to you. And it doesn't always even have to be from that very same person. The blessing can come through somebody else, but it's because of that, you know, good that you have done. Wow.
Definitely.
Oh, amazing. I want to just, you know, say big up. Thank you so much for sharing just a piece of her story, because trust me, we could go into even more things, but just being able in this, you know, program to just be able to share a bit of your story, and as you mentioned, to continue to encourage other persons that it doesn't matter their address or where they come from or what they've been through, whether single parent, ghetto, you name it, they can still become a success. We're wishing you all the best with your PhD. I'm soon going to be calling you Dr. Lawrence-Rose.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much, Louise. Blessings.
Yes, you're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you. Hey everyone, I am Tamara McHale, television and radio presenter, producer, communication specialist, and of course, producer and host of the Trailblazers series. I'm inviting you to join the family. All you have to do is just click that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're alerted as to when we have new episodes, and join our family for weekly inspiring episodes that will not only lift your spirits, but will give you the tools, the keys, and the strategies that you need so that you can blaze your trail.